Greetings, members. Before we proceed with our business this evening, I'd like to raise a point of personal privilege. I want to wish our co-chair, Mignon Moore, a very happy birthday. Mignon, I hope your birthday wish was not more RBC meetings, although if it was, it's certainly coming true.
No, it wasn't, but thank you, Jim, so much.
It's great to see you as always, and great to think about that happy occasion. There's a sadder occasion that I want to mention for just a minute. Those of you who are longtime members and others who just know by reputation know our former co-chair, former Secretary of Labor, Alexis Herman, who passed away a little under a month ago. Mignon and I had the privilege of attending a beautiful celebration of her life at the Washington National Cathedral at the beginning of last week. President Clinton kicked it off with a great eulogy, but many others who knew her in various aspects of her fabulous life had wonderful things to say. So I'd like to just take a moment of silence in honor of former Secretary Alexis Herman. Mignon, I'd like to turn it over to you now to begin our business.
Sure. Thank you. And I'd also just like to add my note of condolences to all the members of Alexis Herman's family, and especially to our coach, one of our members, Bishop Leah Daltrey, who did a beautiful eulogy. And we thank you, Leah, for just expounding on her credentials and her love for not only just the party, but her love for country. So we want to especially thank you as one of our Rules and Bylaws members. So good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for today's DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting. For our court reporter and viewers on live stream, I am Mignon Moore from the District of Columbia. I serve as co-chair of the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee alongside Jim Roosevelt, whom you just heard from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to start with a heartfelt thank you to all the members for joining us again in short order and for your meaningful participation in our last meeting. As we begin, please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As many of you know, or may know, Helen McFadden is in London this week. I think she's joining us. It might be 12 midnight where she is, but will be primarily supported today by parliamentarian Sarah Merkel, who has been with us before. Sarah has over 20 years of experience advising organizations and is one of 6 lawyers in the world credentialed as a certified professional parliamentarian and teacher. Thank you for being with us today, Sarah, and we are certainly in good hands. Now I'd like to recognize Sarah to call the roll. When Sarah calls your name, please unmute your mic to make your presence known and mute your mic once your attendance is recorded. Sarah?
Thank you so much. Stuart Applebaum.
I'm present.
Artie Blanco.
Presente.
Donna Brazil.
Present.
Scott Brennan. Maria Cardona. Ray Curry.
Present.
Leah Daughtry.
Present.
Rachana Desai Martin, who has given her proxy to Donna Brazil. Joanne Dowdell.
Present.
Mo Alethi, who has given proxy to Dennis Spate.
Present.
Carol Fowler.
Present.
Louise Heredia.
Present.
Shavrin Jones. Elaine Kmark.
Present.
Jane Klebb.
Present.
Frank Leone, who has given proxy to Jason Ray.
Here.
Yvette Lewis.
Present.
Molly McGarrick, who has given proxy to Jane Klebb. David McDonald.
Present.
Brian McGlinchey.
Present.
Malone Mitchell.
Present.
Jason Ray.
Here.
Yes. Lee Saunders, who has given proxy to Leah Daughtry. Dennis Spate. No, you're here.
Present again.
Good. Kenny Thompson.
Present.
Randy Weingarten. Tanya Williams. We have a quorum.
Sarah,
Thank-
did you get the note that Scott Brennan is here, but was not able to unmute?
Great. Thank
And
you.
Maria Cardona as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Per our charter and bylaws, a quorum is constituted by 40% or 12 RBC members present in person or by proxy. We have met our quorum. Members, as we previewed with you last week, on February 28th, Kaylin Free filed a challenge concerning the tabulation of vice chair ballots during the February 1st, 2025 DNC officers election. Ms. Free's challenge concerned the way the votes for the seats held by Vice Chair Kenyatta and Hogg were tabulated, arguing that the tabulation method violated provisions of the DNC's charter and parliamentary procedure. After reviewing the parties' written submissions and conducting a hearing, the Credentials Committee issued a resolution recommending that Kaylin Free's challenge to the February 1st elections for the second and third vice chair's positions be granted and that new balloting be conducted. The resolution calls for balloting in a staggered fashion as soon as practical. Our responsibility today is not to opine on the merits of the Credentials Committee's recommendation, but to propose amendments to the rules of procedures in order to allow the DNC to complete this balloting as soon as practical, should the DNC accept the Credentials Committee's recommendation to grant the challenge. I know that there are a range of feelings of the Credentials Committee's recommendation itself, but for tonight, we are going to fulfill our charge to ensure that the DNC can proceed expeditiously if that is the will of the full DNC. As we begin this process, I want to be clear that the amendments we are adding are just for the elections at issue in the challenge and do not impact the vacancy process, which is different. Ultimately, our discussion will focus on updating the rules so that they contemplate specific, unique aspects of this election. While these rules will only come into play should the DNC vote to adopt the Credentials Committee report, they must also be approved by the full DNC. I'll turn it over to Jim to take it from here.
Thank you, Mignon. At its next meeting, the DNC, the full DNC, will first vote on the Credentials Committee resolution and then the rules of procedure. Should the report and the rules be accepted, we will proceed to staggered balloting for the two vice chair positions. In the interests of speed and transparency, we are navigating the rules for balloting today so members and candidates are all aware of the process from the outset. It is our understanding that should the report pass, Chair Martin wants to be respectful of the Credentials Committee's recommendation that the election should be completed as soon as practicable. Our bylaws provide for votes by mail, which the DNC has previously used to conduct email votes. The chair intends to follow a similar process for the credentials report and subsequent ballots if required, which is the thrust of the amendments before you. To execute the rules, Party Affairs is prepared to walk us through the specifics of the balloting process and timeline tonight, following our deliberations. As we begin our discussion, we thought that members may wish to hear directly from the candidates who will be running under these rules. We sent them the draft rules and invited them here today to provide relevant input on the rules of procedure. Each speaker has been allotted 3 minutes. We are joined tonight by Kaylin Free, who is together with Susan Eads Roll and Christy Holland, then by Vice Chair David Hogg and Vice Chair Malcolm Kenyatta. After hearing from them, Andy will walk us through the proposed amendment to the rules of procedure. We'll then request a motion and a second so we may open the floor for discussion. After we vote on the updated rules of procedure, Veronica will walk us through the timeline and process for electronic balloting in line with the rules that we have approved. The rules of procedure and voting process will be sent to DNC members as soon as practicable after this meeting. With that background, we'd like to hear from the potential candidates and then from Andy. Mignon?
Thank you, Jim. We will now invite the potential candidates to speak. Speaking order is determined alphabetically by last name. In addition to the 5 candidates referenced by the Credential Committee members, Joe Palolito, a candidate for vice chair who withdrew before the 3rd ballot, has asked to speak as well. While inviting individuals who are not committee members to speak is not our normal process, as Ambassador Palolito has shared with us that he believes he is eligible to appear on the ballot again despite his withdrawal, and we felt it was important for RBC members to be aware of this. As a reminder, you will each have 3 minutes to address the committee. Please be mindful of time during your remarks. We will begin with Kaylin Free. Kaylin is joined by Susan Eads Roll and Kirsty Holland. You will have a total of 3 minutes together. Please unmute your mic. Your 3 minutes will now begin. Welcome, ladies.
Madam and Mr. Chairpersons and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify. I have served as a prosecutor with the Department of Justice, as an elected district attorney in a deep red state, and represented counties, winning and losing candidates in numerous election challenges, and am an election law specialist. Fair and transparent elections is my North Star. This is not the first time I've found myself standing alone, fighting for justice and the rule of law. This challenge was never about me. I brought this challenge for every man, woman, non-binary person, and person of color that comes after me and wants to serve as an officer of our party. I brought this challenge to make sure that every voting member of the DNC, each of you, has your voice heard in the election of our officers. I appreciate the exhaustive work of the Credentials Committee in recommending the DNC hold a new election for the 2 vice chair positions. I have deep respect for Representative Kenyatta and Mr. Hogg and their passion for working to build a better America through the Democratic Party. However, through no fault of their own, these 2 men were allowed to compete for double the number of votes than the 3 women, making it mathematically impossible for a woman to win, which violated our charter, our rules, and election procedures. Math is math. 415 DNC members were deprived of your right to determine who would hold the last vice chair position, a man or a woman. Had I not pursued this challenge, no one was going to raise this or correct this, and I certainly take no joy in standing alone in doing this. But as a proud citizen of the 3rd largest Indian tribe in America, this is not the first time I have stood alone. And I hope at the end of this process that my tenacity in correcting this error will be understood. Every day we see our democracy and the rule of law under assault. As we fight Republican efforts to undermine democracy, we must hold ourselves to the highest standards. The Credentials Committee has done so, and I'm confident that the RBC will establish fair rules for the new election. I thank the Credentials Committee, the RBC, and all DNC members for doing the work. I want to be clear. We know the mistakes made were not born of malice or intentional. While filing this challenge was not popular among some of the members, please hear me. I did this for you and every member of the DNC who comes after all of us. In closing, I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors. Two of those were my mentors, the late Frank Lemire and Oklahoma Senator Fred Harris. 54 years ago, Senator Harris served as the chairman of the DNC, and he ushered in the very changes to our charter that mandates gender parity. Chapisa Chike, Yakoki.
Thank you. We'll now call on Vice Chair Hogg. You are now recognized to speak. You may unmute and you have 3 minutes, which begins now. David?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Look, first of all, I want to start out by expressing my deep respect for Kaylin and the work that they've done for decades to help move this country forward. I want to say that if we proceed with voiding and redoing this election, we risk sending a message that undermines the confidence that we work so hard to build, not just within our own party, but within the public. The signal that we send them matters. And in this case, it would be that Democrats can't run an election. That is not a message that any of us want to send, especially right now. On top of that, I would say that this has become a massive distraction. And the idea that we are doing this that we're going to void this election and then do an electronic or mail one as soon as possible only adds to the absurdity of this. Especially considering the DNC rarely ever holds electronic or mail-in votes. It's really historically only been done during COVID when people couldn't meet at all. And when all the members had to, the delegates had to nominate Vice President Kamala Harris after President Biden decided not to run for re-election. Ultimately, what I believe in this is that it sends a horrible message to the public about our inability to run elections. And I also think that if we're to redo this election, it truly just sends a horrible message that we really do not want out there at this moment. And that's why I believe that it should not go forward. And if it does, it should not be done electronically or over mail. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We'll now hear from Vice Chair Kenyatta. You're now recognized to speak. You may unmute and you have 3 minutes. It begins now.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I hope that I can call you Madam Birthday Girl Chair as well on this very special day. I want to thank all the members of the committee for pulling double and triple duty, not only the work that you do for our country and our party and all of your individual respects, but also for the work that you do as a DNC member and as a member of this committee. It is no big secret that I fundamentally believe we held a fair election at National Harbor, an election that produced a officer corps that looks like America, and that in a historic fashion elevated for the first time ever 2 people to our committee under the age of 35. That is a big deal. And I think it speaks to the wisdom and the goal of DNC members to listen to voters from all across this country, no matter who they are, what they look like, or where they're from. That was a good thing that we did. However, I understand that in the Democratic Party, at least, we still believe in due process. And Ms. Free, who I have immense respect for, went forward with that process. My lawyers argued vigorously, and I continue to stand by our response to her challenge, that this was done fairly, that this was done properly, and that frankly, there is no need to conduct a new election when the will of the DNC members was clearly reflected in the 3 officers that were elected on that day for vice chair. That being said, I think it is a mistake for us to continue to litigate, relitigate, and now relitigate the litigation that we had. And I think we need to move forward. We as a party have the capacity to run an election quickly. We have the capacity to do it by mail. We have a team of incredible individuals who understand technology, who understand digital security, who understand how to get ballots to DNC members to fulfill their responsibility to re-examine the candidates and to move forward in selecting 2 vice chairs. It is my hope, however, that if the members do move forward to hold a new election, a decision that members are going to have to make for themselves, I do hope that we at least have one virtual forum, because there are many new DNC members. And I want to be very clear, we did a lot of forums, okay? I really don't want to do any more forums. But I do think it is critical that we have an opportunity to talk about what I have been up to for the last 110 days, what other members, potential officers, what their vision would be for holding these positions, and to give the new members of the DNC who are not there an opportunity to hear that vision. So I just want to thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to Ambassador Paulino. You're now recognized to speak. You may unmute, and you have 3 minutes, and it begins now.
Well, thank you very much, and to the members, thank you. And I want to applaud Kaylin Free for taking this on. It's always tough when you take somebody on or take on an organization, and I give her credit for following through in her belief. Let me state, I am a member of the Democratic National Committee. I represent Rhode Island. And I'm here because the resolution clearly states, quote, only the candidate who were eligible for a 3rd vice chair ballot on February 1, 2025 will be eligible for the new balloting. If that takes place, I feel that I am eligible because I did get through the first ballot and the second ballot. As we all know, we had 13 hours of voting, 13 hours, 11 o'clock at night. Why we can't do electronic in this day and age is beyond me. But the fact that I didn't appear on the ballot does not negate my eligibility to have been on the ballot. As you know, access to the ballot, whether as a voter or a candidate, is sacrosanct in America and has long been established that this right should generally be interpreted inclusively unless there is a compelling reason to restrict it. This expansive interpretation has been upheld by justices ranging from Gorch to Brennan. I believe the leadership should err on the side of allowing interested parties to participate rather than imposing strict constraints on what should be an open and democratic process. I don't think anyone wants the process to appear as though there is an attempt to produce a particular outcome. The credibility of the party is on the line. We should be talking about Trump more than we should be talking about this. But my suggestion is, if there is a ballot, another vote, open it up to everybody. Whoever wants to get involved, open it up to them. If you don't, if you want to follow the resolution that you have in place, then I think the resolution clearly states that I would be eligible. If you want to amend that resolution and state that only the people that are on the ballot are allowed to run, then I would go along with that. If that's the case, that's fine. But the resolution does not state that. The resolution states that if you were eligible to be on the 3rd ballot. So my suggestion is, let's just be transparent with everybody. Open it up. Let's do electronic voting. Let's not go on for 13 hours voting. Let's just get it done, and let's all be together as one party. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Members, that concludes the presentations from the potential candidates. I'd like to ask Andy now to walk through the proposed amendments. Then we'll take a motion to begin discussion. Andy?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Before the members tonight are amendments to the rules of procedure that were adopted by the DNC on February 1st, 2025 to facilitate the elections of a 2nd and 3rd vice chair position should the Credentials Committee report be adopted by the full DNC. This is a very simple addition of a section 4E to the existing rules, which I believe are being shown on the screen. It is divided into 6 sections, the first of which states that in accordance with Article 28H of the Bylaws of the Democratic Party of the United States and the May 12, 2025 resolution of the Credentials Committee, if it is approved by the DNC, the chair may distribute an electronic voting mechanism by email for the elections of the second and third vice chair positions. This is to facilitate the election, should that be the will of the full DNC, as soon as practicable, which is incorporated into the Credentials Committee's resolution. It next goes that in accordance with the resolution, only candidates who are eligible for and appeared on the third vice chair ballot on February 1st, 2025 are eligible for the new balloting. If any eligible candidate wishes to withdraw their name from consideration for the second or third vice chair positions, they must email their notice of withdrawal to the office of the secretary at least 1 hour before the next ballot on which they would appear is scheduled to be distributed. And please note, in this draft, it says 1 hour. The original language that was distributed to members was 24 hours, but we have since learned from our election administration vendor that we can change the ballot a little bit more easily. And so to allow candidates more time to consider whether they would like to withdraw, we have changed that to 1 hour. Next, in accordance with the resolution, the election of the male vice chair position shall be completed before the election of the any gender vice chair position begins. Fourth, if the electronic voting mechanism is distributed to the membership by email, the chair shall announce a schedule for voting as soon as practicable and no later than 7 days before the distribution of the first ballot to give DNC members sufficient time to plan and be ready to vote their ballots when they are received. Next, each proxy and any transfer of a proxy must be submitted to the secretary 24 hours prior to the scheduled distribution of the ballot in which the proxy will be voted to give sufficient time to ensure that proxies are registered and can be submitted to members in time. And last, if the electronic voting mechanism is distributed to the membership by email, quorum for each vote shall be 40% of the full membership of the DNC returning a ballot via the electronic voting mechanism. And this was written to mirror the requirement in our bylaws that 40% of DNC members be present in person in order for there to be a quorum for DNC meetings. That is it. Those are the only changes. Otherwise, the full rules of procedure that were adopted by the DNC on February 1st would apply to these elections should you adopt this amendment to the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'll turn it back to Chair Roosevelt.
To add section Roman numeral 4E to the 2025 Rules of Procedure for the election of Democratic National Committee officers, which will allow us to begin discussion. Is there a motion to amend the 2025 Rules of Procedure for the election of DNC officers and add section 4E in order to begin discussion?
So move. Second.
I hear a motion and a second. The floor is open for discussion by members. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Aaron, will you let me know as people raise their hands?
Seeing none at the moment, Chair, we'll give folks another second.
Looks like David McDonald. Jim?
I do see David McDonald's hand. David, would you like to speak?
Yes. I have an amendment I want to propose, although not to this section, and I'm happy to hold it until you're through discussing this section, but I do have concerns about section 2 of section 2 sub C sub 5 of the rules that we're about to adopt.
So I will ask you to hold it. Thank you for the heads up, but if you'll hold it till we complete any discussion of this section. Is there anyone who would like to speak directly on section 4E and the amendment to the rules of procedure? I neither hear nor see any discussion for this amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Bishop Daughtry.
Yeah, just clarifying point, and I'm trying to, oh, here it is, pulling up the language here, where it talks about who's eligible to be on the ballot. And I raised this in light of what the ambassador raised in terms of his own eligibility. And this says only candidates who are eligible for and who appeared on the third vice chair ballot are eligible for the new balloting. Is that in conflict with what the ambassador is suggesting? Because he's saying that he withdrew, but this language says that did appear on the ballot, which would seem to mean that he would not be eligible. So I'm just asking for clarification, or maybe I'm misreading this.
I'm happy to answer that question. Yes, so we have added language to section 2E2 that clarifies that in accordance with the resolution, only candidates who were eligible for and appeared on the third vice chair ballot would be eligible for this round of balloting. The purpose of that clarification is that, as can be seen from the document submitted by the challenger and also the discussion around the resolution that was adopted by the Credentials Committee, the intention of the Credentials Committee was very clearly that only the 5 candidates who appeared on the ballot would be eligible in this round of balloting, and that any candidate who had withdrawn before the balloting started had taken themselves out of consideration and was therefore no longer eligible for the ballot. So we would recommend that the committee adopt that clarification within these rules of procedure.
Thank you.
So that is how it now reads. It is, of course, open to discussion and amendment. Carol Fowler, I see you have your hand raised. I think you're muted.
I've only done this 10,000 times and I still can never unmute successfully. I don't have any specific questions about this, but when the DNC, the full DNC votes on the resolution from the Credentials Committee, what are our rules for doing that?
So, Andy, you could weigh in also, but I will begin by saying that it is like any other report of of one of the standing committees. So it is a majority vote, and then of course subject to discussion before the vote. Andy, anything else to add?
Yes, so for the adoption of the Credentials Committee report, as well as any rules updates that are proposed by the Rules and Bylaws Committee, that would be distributed to membership by a mail vote before any subsequent election would take place. The chair under the DNC's bylaws has the authority to submit questions to members by mail. And so this would need to be approved by the full DNC membership ahead of time.
Can you, Andy, for the sake of this call, can you repeat that one more time so that people are really clear?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Under the DNC's bylaws, the chair has the authority to refer questions to the full DNC membership by mail, which we have also done by email over the last several years. The intention would be that the Credentials Committee report, as well as these updated rules of procedure from the RBC, should you approve them, would be submitted to the full DNC membership for approval. Only if the Credentials Committee report is adopted by the full DNC membership and these rules of procedure are adopted by the full DNC membership would balloting then occur subject to these rules.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Joanne, Judge Dowdell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the staff for the work on this these amendments. My question is regarding item number 3, where it says, in accordance with the resolution, the election of the male vice chair position shall be completed before the election for any gender vice chair. When you say that, would it be same day, or are we looking to hold the election on maybe the next day? So the first ballot would be on Monday and the second would be on Tuesday, or a week later. What is the timing of that?
That's a great question. Veronica is going to go over what the expected timeline will be in a few minutes, but we do anticipate that for an email vote, we would give membership at least 3 days to vote to ensure that every member has an opportunity to exercise their right to vote on this. So the mail balloting would be completed over the course of several days, and then the any gender balloting would begin after that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else with a comment or question?
I am not seeing any, Chair.
Thank you, Aaron. I will now ask Sarah to call the roll for a vote to add section 4E to the rule 2020 to the 2025 rules of procedure for the election of officers. It's been moved and seconded, and I see no further discussion from members. So Sarah, would you go ahead? Let me point out that when your name is called, please unmute your mic and cast your vote. Then mute your microphone again. And if you are holding a proxy, when that person is called, please unmute and verbally cast their vote.
Stuart Applebaum,
Yes.
Artie Blanco,
Stain?
yes. Donna Brazile,
Yes.
Scott Brennan,
Yes.
Maria Cardona.
P.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That means yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ray Curry,
Yes.
Leah Daughtry,
Yes.
Rachena Desai Martin, whose proxy is being held by Miss Brazile,
Yes. Please. Yes.
Joanne Dowdell,
Yes.
Mo Lethe, whose proxy is being held by Dennis Spate,
Yes.
Carol Fowler,
Yes.
Louise Hereda,
Yes.
Elaine Kmark,
Yes.
Jane Klebb,
Yes.
Frank Leone, whose proxy is being held by Jason Ray,
Yes.
Yvette Lewis,
Yes.
Molly McGarrick, whose proxy is being held by Jane Klebb,
Yes.
David McDonald,
Since this is after or on the assumption that the Credentials Committee report has been adopted, I vote yes.
Brian McClinchy,
Yes.
Malone Mitchell,
Yes.
Jason Ray,
Yes.
Lee Saunders, whose proxy is being held by Leah Daughtry,
Yes.
Dennis Spate,
Yes.
Kenny Thompson, Kenny Thompson, Randy Weingarten, whose proxy is being held by Ray Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have 24 votes in favor and 0 opposed.
Let me just confirm that. Were there any no votes?
No,
of
sir.
Anyone who voted?
Yes.
Yes, Artie.
Mr. Chairman, I abstained.
It's what I understood also.
Okay.
So please
Mr. Chair.
show an abstention for Artie Blanco.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, this is Chevron Jones. I'm sorry, my phone went out as I was leaving the event. I want to vote in favor.
We can do that because we've not closed the vote yet.
I have
So
25, I have 25 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So with that vote, the motion is approved. Thank you, members. Is there any further discussion on this matter? So now I will ask the Director of the Office of the Secretary and Party Affairs, Veronica Martinez-Roman, to provide an overview of the electronic balloting timeline and process.
Mr. Chair,
And we have David.
I had indicated I had an amendment and I was waiting for you to complete discussion on section 4.
Let me step back then and ask you to state that amendment, please.
Yes. As I believe I indicated last meeting, I have some concerns, actually more than some concerns, that section 2C5, paraphrasing what our charter says, misstates the charter in terms of how we do our gender equity allocation. It's not a subject that I propose to debate today, but because I think it clearly misstates the language of the charter, what I would do is move to amend section 2C5 to take out the language in commas, which reads, with the exception of the national chairperson and the president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, ASDC. With that deletion, the remaining language will read, provision will be made to elect the appropriate number of persons of each gender to ensure that the officers shall be as equally divided as practicable according to gender in accordance with Article 3, Section 1E of the Charter. That way, all we're really saying is the Charter provides for gender equity. The Charter says what it says. We are not reinterpreting it, potentially rewriting it, trying to speculate on what the circumstances might be the day this election happens, or even for that matter, what the charter might say by the day the vote happens. So I'm simply trying to remove an issue because I have great discomfort in voting for something that I think misstates our charter when I think the charter is clear.
David, I think I understand what you wanted to say. Would you restate what you want to remove?
Yes. In section 2C5, the first sentence, beginning at the 5th line, actually deleting the comma that is the end of the 4th line. Right after the word that, there is a comma. And I would delete the comma and then also delete the language with the exception of the national chairperson and the president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, paren, ASDC, close paren, and delete the comma. So it removes the paraphrasing of what the charter says. We can all read it and decide what we think it means or how it applies, but there's no need for these rules to try to paraphrase it.
So your amendment, which you are putting in the form of a motion, is to remove the highlighted language.
Yes, so that the result would be that the rule says that provision has to be made to elect the appropriate number of persons of each gender to ensure that the charter is followed without characterizing what the charter may require, other than it requires.
So it doesn't change because of the following language. In accordance with Article 3, Section 1E of the Charter, it doesn't change what the Charter says in this regard.
Right. It simply removes any suggestion that we might be trying to rewrite the Charter by means of a rule. I'm not saying we necessarily are, because I'm not trying to have the debate this time. I'm simply trying to clean up the language so I can vote for it and vote for gender equity according to the Charter, and then the full DNC can decide what that means.
So if I'm properly taking this as a motion, is there a second for this motion?
Second.
Second.
Would you state your names on the seconds just for the reporter?
Dennis Spate.
Carol Fowler.
Thank you both. All right. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Chair, I see Jane Klebb, President Klebb.
Hi, Chair. So first, thank you, David, for bringing this up. This was a lot of discussion in the credentials report, and I think even in this committee before as well. I have concerns with not clarifying the gender position of the ASDC president in these voting rules of procedure, because it doesn't make any sense to me that if we're freezing in time the people that were eligible for the ballot, that we're not also then freezing in time the gender of the ASDC president. Because the argument on the other side is that if the gender of the ASDC president, which is now known, which is me, therefore only 2 males could be eligible to be voted on the ballot, which obviously significantly changes the purpose even of the challenge by Kaylin Free. So I think the rules of procedure at the time of voting were that the ASDC president gender was not put into consideration. And I think it's important to note that that is true because the ASDC chooses when our elections are. It could have been before or after the elections of the vice chair and chair of the DNC. I'm also aware that there will potentially be a rule change moving forward to make it very clear that at any point, the gender of the ASDC president should not be considered in the gender balance of all the vice chairs for lots of reasons. But I think we need to have it very clear that in this particular call, that the rules of procedure still abide by the ASDC president's gender should not be considered.
So you are opposing this amendment?
Correct. And I think that there therefore should also be clarifying language as well. So that is not confused in the future voting for this particular point.
Any further discussion?
And I agree with Jane. We should have a future discussion to clarify whatever the mistakes that we see with regards to the charter in terms of section 2C5. I'm going to vote no because I do believe that what procedures were in place should remain for this particular election, and that we should at some point in the near future have this conversation with regards to making sure that there's consistency, as well as take a look at what Jane just mentioned as well in terms of the ASDC. So I vote no. And David, hopefully we can put this at our next meeting.
So I'm going to return to you in a moment, David, but just let me ask first, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Chair, I see Ray Curry.
Mr. Curry?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm going to say I have to stand in opposition to this as well. I think that clearly there were rules of procedure in place at the time. I think the additional piece in consideration tonight is we've had a clear understanding in multiple communications and even from the candidates for the vice chair, which is what we're actually addressing. To change the rules of procedure now to address additional office would not be in order from what we've actually taken place. And what was in place at the time, that's been addressed. And now we're opening up the door for an additional race and consideration.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Curry. Anyone else before I return to Mr. McDonald? David?
Thanks, Jim. Let me say first, I don't think we are freezing time. I don't think we have the ability to freeze time. I think people wish they could freeze time, but we're not doing that. If we were freezing time, the voters would be the same voters who voted that day. It would not be a new set of voters. But more to the point, I don't think even in January that the DNC or the RBC had the ability to overrule the charter by rule. And I just want to remind people what the charter says. The section we're talking about says that we are to, quote, provide for the election or appointment of a chairperson, 5 vice chairpersons, one of whom shall be the president of the Association of State Democratic Committees, and one of whom shall be the vice chairperson for civic engagement and voter participation, a treasurer, a secretary, and a national finance chair who, with the exception of the chairperson, shall be as equally divided as practicable according to gender. It doesn't say with the exception of the ASDC chair. Now, maybe the DNC wants to change it. Maybe the DNC will change that before we do an election. But I cannot, in good conscience, sit here and say we are the party of the rule of law when we say we have a clear charter and we're going to put a rule in that adds language to the charter without authority. I am simply trying to have our rules say whatever the charter is, however the DNC wants to interpret it at the meeting or during the vote, that's up to them. But I don't think we should mischaracterize it or potentially mischaracterize it. It should be left to the full DNC in our normal process. I think personally that gender equity is very important. I also think that the ASDC is an ally of the DNC that does very good work, and that's why we put a chairperson in there. But we normally take account of the gender of allies and ask them to send us appropriate officers. I also personally think if the ASDC had chosen to have its election ahead of the DNC chair's election, that whatever their outcome would have dictated what we had to do with our vice chair. But anyway, I'm beginning to go on, and I don't want to go beyond the point that I think we should just leave the language to say whatever the charter says is what we have to follow and not attempt to interpret it here.
Thank you, David. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none and Aaron seeing no hands raised, we'll move to a vote on this amendment, which is to remove the language as specified by Mr. McDonald. Sarah, would you call the roll?
We have a question.
Chair, I see Carol Fowler raising her hand.
I see now also Carol. You're muted. There we go. No, not quite.
I'm sorry to be slow on this, but when we voted in January, February, whenever it was, why, when we adopted the rules of procedure for that, when this committee adopted those rules of procedure, why did we ignore what the charter said in that? And I think it's because we knew the ASDC election was coming the next day, but we still should not have felt free to ignore the charter. What was our thinking?
So, as I recall it, Carol, we did know when the ASDC election was going to be. Therefore, the rules of procedure were designed to take that reality into account, not to change the charter for the future, but to take that reality into account for February 1, 2025.
Well, it is an eventuality like the timing of the ASDC election grounds for ignoring the charter? Apparently it is. And a person from the staff said to me yesterday, oh, don't worry about this because we're going to change the charter. Well, but we haven't yet changed the charter. This is kind of worrisome that we can just hope that someday the charter gets changed so that we can ignore it today.
So therefore, Carol, are you arguing for a yes vote or a no vote on this amendment?
I'm a seconder of this amendment, and I'm arguing for a yes vote. I just don't think we can put the charter to the side as a matter of convenience.
Understand.
Chair, I see Bishop Daughtry, then Stuart Applebaum.
Bishop Daughtry?
Yes, I would just note that these rules of procedure, we didn't just come up with for this cycle. They've been this way for as long as I can remember, when we elected officers, that the gender of the ASDC chair and the gender of the chair of the party were immaterial to the election of the other vice chairs. So I say that I'm not saying that to say it's right, but I'm saying that to say this is not a new thing, that we've done it this way for a number of cycles. And so I'm going to vote no, because I think this is a larger discussion that we need to have. And if we didn't fix it before, let's not try to jam a fix in right now. I think we need to have a larger discussion that may involve the ASDC's cooperation in terms of when their elections are, if in fact we're trying to do straight equal division and take into account who that chairperson may be. But other than that, we're constraining the gender of the ASDC chair. By any change like this that does not involve their cooperation in how they timed their elections.
Thank you, Leah. Mr. Applebaum?
Yes, thank you. I'm also going to be voting no, because I agree with Leah that this is a much larger discussion that we need to be having. And I don't believe we were prepared for this discussion today. I feel that we should defer this discussion until we can be better prepared and we can hear from more people about the proposed change. Therefore, I'm going to be voting no.
Anyone? Thank you, Stuart. Anyone with any further discussion?
Seeing none, Chair.
Seeing none and hearing none, Sarah, would you proceed to call the roll on this amendment?
Stuart Applebaum,
I vote no.
Artie Blanco,
Abstain.
Donna Brazile,
No.
Scott Brennan,
No.
Maria Cardona,
No.
Ray Curry,
No.
Leah Daughtry,
No.
Rachona Desai Martin, proxy to Donna Brazile,
No.
Joanne Dowdell,
No.
Mo Alithi, whose proxy is held by Dennis Spate,
Abstain.
Carol Fowler,
Yes.
Louise Hibrida,
No.
Chevrin Jones,
No.
Elaine Kmark, Elaine Kmark. I can see you unmuting.
No. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Jane Klebb,
No.
Frank Leone, whose proxy is held by Jason Ray,
I'm going to abstain for Frank.
Yvette Lewis,
No.
Molly McGarrick, whose proxy is held by Jane Klebb,
No.
David McDonald,
I vote yes.
Brian McClinchy,
No.
Malone Mitchell,
No.
Jason Ray,
No.
Lee Saunders, whose proxy is held by Leah Daughtry,
No.
Dennis Spate.
No.
I can see Kenny Thompson is next. I can see he's in the waiting room. So I will circle back to his vote. Randy Weingarten, who has given her proxy to Ray Curry.
No.
Tanya Williams. Kenny Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to vote yes or no on the amendment if you've been following along, or you can abstain?
It's a no for me.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 yes votes, 21 no votes, and 3 abstentions.
So it is clear that the amendment fails. Now, we will turn to Veronica for an overview of the electronic balloting timeline and process.
Thank you so much, Chair. Sorry, I'm just pulling up our slide here. As the Chair mentioned, I will walk through the timeline and then provide an overview of the electronic system we'll utilize to conduct the voting process. The team, as they've just popped up on the screen, will attach a little explainer here so you don't have to jot down notes as well. The first vote, which is the vote on the Credentials Committee resolution and also the rules of procedure that you all just approved, we intend for it to occur between June 9th and June 11th. For each of these ballots, they will start at 10 a.m. Eastern on the day of the start and then end at 5 p.m. Eastern on the last day of voting. A majority is required to approve each of these items. If the full body rejects the Credentials Committee resolutions, the current seating of the officers will stand. And if the full body accepts the resolution and approves the updated rules of procedure, the DNC will administer ballots to fill the final 2 vice chair positions, one of which may be male and one of which may be a candidate of any gender, in line with the rules of procedure and following the rules of procedure that you all promulgated today. As you can see, the male vice chair vote will open on Thursday, June 12th at 10 a.m. Eastern and remain open until 5 p.m. on Saturday, June 14th. Then we will do the any gender ballot. That will be from Sunday, June 15th at 10 a.m. and close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 17th. Now, should we need to do any additional ballots, we do plan to conduct them with the same amount of time as the previous ballots. The DNC will utilize Election Buddy, which is an online voting software that I know a lot of our state party friends here are familiar with, to facilitate the voting process. We've partnered with Election Buddy because it's a trusted system, secure, user-friendly, and approved by our security team. The Office of the Secretary and Party Affairs will host training sessions as well as regular office hours, and I think the team is going to scroll down to show you those, during voting so members can cast their ballots with live technical support. So as you can see, we are doing training sessions in the run-up to the voting here, and then when we actually have the ballots out, we'll set up essentially office hours where members can either ask questions or they can work directly with the staff member to help them cast their ballot themselves. We will additionally have on-call tech support from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, while voting is live over the weekend. When each vote opens, members will receive an email with their voting link and credentials. Voting can be completed in 3 simple steps. Voters log in using their access key and password included in a voting email that they will receive with their credentials. They then make a selection and review the ballot and submit. And it really is that simple, I promise, but we have done a video here as well to share with you so you can just see what this looks like from a voter's perspective. Okay, I think that's a wrap on our video. As you can see, it landed on a confirmation code there. I just want to assure everyone that voters, after they cast their vote, they'll receive an email receipt confirming they cast their vote. It will not include any results or anything that they would be worried about there, but they will get a confirmation once their ballot is cast, and they can also confirm with our team to see whether their ballot has been cast. So that's a bit about Election Buddy and our timeline here. I would love to answer any questions that folks have if they have them about this process.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is Chevron Jones. Thank you so much, Veronica, for this. Just for a question, I mean, the timeline is already fast, but I would want to know as far as why so many days for people to vote. I would think that 24 hours is more than enough time for people to vote, and I think people will vote quickly. But I mean, if there's an alternative reason, I would just ask that particular question if possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great question. We are basing the time windows off of our past experience. We have done several electronic voting sessions at the party before and through state party experiences as well. We can track when votes are cast, and oftentimes votes are cast early, but we want to make sure that all members have an opportunity to cast their ballot and use the tech support if needed as well. If they were traveling, maybe they didn't see the email. We just want to make sure that all members have an opportunity to feel enfranchised. And so we thought the window and kind of having a weekend day in there as well for each of those might make sure that all members have the opportunity to have their voice heard. But we will track the results returning this time too and see if it's even speedier.
I don't know. Look in the spice drawer. What on?
And we do have Democrats abroad and others, and I think the timeline is sufficient. There are 21 days from tonight's meeting. Elaine, mute yourself, love. You sound like you're making pasta. Send some over. Spice drawer. I know she ain't making gumbo, so it must be pasta. The 22nd, tonight's the 22nd. There are 3 weeks between now and the first availability to vote. Is it possible, because one of the candidates, our outstanding vice chair, Malcolm Kenyatta, proposed that we try to hold forums as well. Is this an opportunity for us to allow the full membership to get briefed, not just on the credentials report, but also to make them aware, especially if they're new, that we have some outstanding candidates and maybe they want to hear from them?
I think that's an excellent point, and it was something we've discussed with the chair as well. So I will say two pieces. Part of the reason this is starting a bit later with June 9th is we want to make sure that members are fully informed of this process, that they understand what is happening. We now have the rules of procedure from you all, so we can solidify our plan with Election Buddy and make sure we're in good shape. And frankly, a lot of that window too was to allow for the training process too. I think in terms of the forums, this was something we discussed, and we want to be sure that candidates have an opportunity to reintroduce themselves, and time has passed. And so we have discussed having a video option to make sure that membership can receive that from them as well, to hear from them directly.
Before Chevron comes on, can you clarify for the Rules Committee how many new members we have? Because I believe that David mentioned new members, and so did Malcolm. So that we're really clear on how many new members have to be briefed on this. Because I think when I talked to you earlier today, you mentioned there was new state chairs.
Yes, ma'am, that's right. There are, and I'm embarrassed to say this with the secretary on, so perhaps I should hand it over to him, but he will correct me. I think there's approximately 20 or so.
We have about 22 new members, Madam Co-Chair, who have been elected from their state parties or affiliated groups since our DNC meeting on February 1st. So who have taken their office and be seated as new DNC members. So we're at about 22 right now. And I know there are other state parties that will be doing elections over the next few weeks. I know we had one state chair just step down yesterday and a state party doing an election this weekend. So we'll continue to see a few more over the next few weeks as well.
Just to point out and have you confirm, Mr. Secretary, there are not new members elected by the DNC itself. They're from either constituency
by
groups
their state parties, affiliated
or
groups.
state parties.
Correct, sir.
That's correct. There's a distinction there. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is Chevron. This is Chevron. Yeah. So based off what Ms. Donna just made mention of, and I want to just remind the committee, I'm usually pretty quiet in our meetings, but just observing over the past couple of months, I've watched Malcolm travel this country back and forth and work to do what I believe vice chairs should be doing, we do have new members, and I think it's only right that as far as forums are concerned, for individuals to know the candidates, to know what their intentions are for us as a party to move forward. I want to make a motion that we do hold at least one forum, at least one virtual forum. So even those new members, whether it's 1, 3, 9, or 100, that we hold a forum so we can hear individuals' intentions. And so I want to put a motion on the floor that we have at least one virtual forum, because I think it's the right thing for us to do.
Chevron, I'm going to take the position as chair that we don't have the power to call forums, but we can communicate to Chair Martin that it is the sense of this committee that one or more forums would be useful and fair.
And Jim, in addition to the forums, the video, what Veronica mentioned, that we could have the candidates submit a video so that at our leisure, we can watch it on YouTube or wherever, however we can get our videos these days.
Okay, that's
Just keep it clean. Keep it clean. That's all I'm asking you.
As usual, this committee is creative and coming up with some good ideas. And Veronica, we will be sure that the chair is aware of the sentiment here. Anything else that anyone else would like to bring forward to the committee?
Not seeing any hands, Chair.
So that concludes our agenda for today. Does anyone have any other questions or announcements on any other subject before we go?
No hands.
All right, with no additional questions or comments, I want to extend my gratitude once more to our parliamentarians, Sarah Merkel and from afar, Helen McFadden, to our DNC leadership, Roger Lau, Jessica Wright, and Libby Shinador, along with the Office of Secretary and Party Affairs, our counsel, Andy Levian, our court reporter, and our interpreter. Thank you to you all. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.